Okay, friends, subscribers, and all you YouTubers, I was currently searching the stereo camera for some daily images when I found a orb around a Jupiter-sized orb around the Sun. But then I went back and decided to go back a couple of days and searching for large objects. By the way, the large object is to the right. But check out the size of the Sun in this image, because on the next day they started to pixelate the Sun so that you could not recognise it was the Sun expanded out. And yes, they are covering up the size of the Sun. Please notice that the images have been moved up and down and to the side so that it affects the centre, but luckily the orbs are still there. To the left hand side you'll see a Jupiter-sized orb. The Sun, by the way, should be the size of that little white ring. It is not. You can see that the pixelation they have done is to truly cover over the size of our Sun. Our Sun, it may look double in size, but hence in the mass you would actually times 4 by, you'd work it out on a basis, there's a certain formula for calculating the size of a sphere. So when a sphere is double the size, hence the actual mass is a lot more than double. So it may be double in size in width and height, but the actual mass is a lot greater than that. Now, check out the orb to the left-hand side. Someone is coming along and checking out what's going on with our Sun. Someone else, another race, because that is an orb. There are no sequential images. In other words, they are no images in sequence. These are images over a period of days. Check the size of this one out. That would have to be 3 times the size of Jupiter. When this expansion started, these larger craft started to come in. Now, the Sun has been expanded for a few weeks. I haven't actually gone back far enough yet. I just wanted to get this video out to you so you guys can actually get out there and start doing some of your research yourselves. I just thought I'd let you know that I've picked up this anomaly. And if you turn around and shuffle that image around like a puzzle, you'll put the Sun back together and realise, yes, that is the Sun. From both Core 1 and Core 2 cameras, and you notice those orbs, they are a lot larger than the normal ones that come in and check out the Sun, so these orbs must be taking it fairly seriously as to what's happening with our Sun. And we are heading towards these days of the calendar event. Our Sun could be blinking out and blink out for a little while. This could be why all the military dams are being built and all the so-called birthing centres are being built, and they openly admitted, the Yanks openly admit they've built certain birthing centres. It was passed in Congress. So yeah, we've got a little bit of a problem going on with our Sun, as you've seen in some of the other vids where I've talked about this enlargement that was actually quite large. Now, there's a definite attempt here to cover up what's actually going on with the Sun, because in this image you would truly be able to make out that the Sun has expanded. They most probably thought it would have gone back down, but it has not shrunk. So I'd say that's why they have started pixelating over these images, or set the focus so that the focus pixelates it in this way. I don't know how they've done it, but these images are definitely doctored, and I mean these images have been doctored in a way so that you can't recognise that this is the Sun. By the way, the orb is just above the 18 on that one. Orb just above 2000, just above the 10 section of the 11. There's a second orb not far above the 0. Now, again, you can see the flares coming off the Sun, which proves that's the Sun. That's really the Sun in the background. It should be the size of that little white ring. We should only be seeing the flares and the magnetic interference coming off it, but it currently has been a bit larger than normal, and I think they're starting to realise that the size of the Sun is getting a bit larger, and I don't think it's any reason to panic, but I do believe that there is something happening with our Sun. It could explain all the adverse weather we're having. Yeah, so basically what we've got to look at is the fact that these images are being fiddled with. I just noticed something in regard to the corners of these images. Notice that there's no slits being done. The only pixelation and movement of this image have been from the centre sections to the up and down to side to manipulate these images so that they do not look like the sun. They are definitely, truly trying to cover this up, folks. It is a definite attempt to cover up the fact that our sun is larger than it should be. And that is the sun on the outer section. You can see where all that brightness is. They are not just flares. They are flares, but they are also part of the forward section of the sun, which we're not normally supposed to see. Yet I have noticed over a period of time that the Core 1 camera and the Core 2 camera, notice that larger orb, you're going to see that enlarged in a second. And you'll notice the pixelation on that larger orb, down the bottom, is false, because the pixelation should be equal spacing, equal size, yet the pixelation is not thing. Like the centre of this image, it's artificially been done. Okay? It's been artificially been done. So that's not truly the correct pixelation. Look at the pixelation around it. Look at the pixelation of that unit. And so, yes, that's another, they have tried to cover that over as to what it is, but you can see the darkness on the outside. Now, that's that earlier image on the 4th. Now, notice there's no pixelation. You can clearly make out that there's beams coming off the bottom of it, yet there's no flares on the top of section as it's expanding. It looks like there's not enough fuel to expand, and the flares coming out. They're still happening, but they're happening underneath that coronal mass. Now, that coronal mass dump, that's more than likely going to happen again in a few more days. We've just had one recently, and I'd say we're going to get another coronal mass dump, because it only does this generally just before one of these coronal mass dumps happen. Now, even though it's double the size in the mass, you do have to scientifically think about, i.e. how a sphere and everything, but you've only got to look at that, and if you split that up on a board, on a jigsaw puzzle, exactly where all those, where they've tried to chop the image up, and you laid it out correctly, you will find that you can build a true picture of the sun. And they're basically trying to cover up. Now, in this shot, even though this shot's on the 5th, notice how it's a bit smaller on that image. So it's going up and down. That coronal mass around our sun, around our corona, is expanding out, which if you've seen any of my other videos, in the last video and everything, you'll see that it generally happens before we do a coronal mass dump or a push through the universe. I believe this is its way of building up the energy that we actually need to do a shift through the universe, i.e. with my moving suns theory, which has actually proven that these events are connected to earthquakes. So I'd say after that coronal, check out the size of this craft at the side. The size of that craft would have to be at least 3 times the size of Jupiter, because you've got to remember the normal size of the sun is the size of that white ring. Now notice how the sun's getting a bit larger again. Now it's going to get a bit larger again after that, and it's going to get a bit larger again after that as well. And you're going to see that all these things are happening, and they are genuinely happening. These events, what can you say? You've just got to look at it. Think like a puzzle maker. Put it back together in your mind. You can say, okay, that's the sun. What is the hell is NASA up to? Why are they covering this up? Because they don't want you to know. They cover so much crap up every year that it's beyond a joke. YouTube has been the best outlet for researchers like myself. I may only be an amateur, but I tell you now, I most probably know just as much about the sun as the others. And because I sit here and I do this nearly every single day, and I've been doing it for quite a few years. Been doing this as long as I've been doing UFO research. And actually maybe a year or two less than the UFO research. But the thing is, the solar research is actually just as important, because, and now that I have access to these telescopes, see again, now check this out on the 6th, it's much larger, and the pixelation attempt, notice how it's only up and down, side to side. The corners of it are untouched by this movement. So hence, they're saying, okay, we only need to move the centre pixels, moving them that way, they won't recognise it's the sun and everything. Think like a puzzle maker. Copy the image. copy, download, print the image out, put it on a piece of paper, cut it out, do what I did. And you guess what you get? You get a picture of the sun. Just chop out, just make sure you put a cross in the middle of that centre so that everything is just going out, because you've got to move everything outwards a little bit. And to the angle, you've got to remember sometimes they move it up and down, so you've got to work out where they go, and you may have to print out 2 sets of images so that you can paste them all back over. And you will get a picture of the sun. Now notice how it's smaller in this one. This is yet after that large image where it was larger than the whole round ring, yet it's shrunk down. It's shrinking down again. So hence it's going up, it's going down, it's going up, it's going down. You've got to remember that coronal mass around the outside is actually gas. Okay, but when we talk mass, we talk the size and mass, and it's going by the exterior, so the mass of the gas is much greater. Yet it's not as powerful, hence we're getting those dark spots when it's actually larger. This has been proved in all those other shots where, and I'll stick a couple at the end of this, and show you that when the sun does blow up in size, that it does get darker. Hence these are the flashes that we see with the naked eye that everybody's been seeing for some time. And trust me, folks, I believe this has been an event happening for billions of years. Now, once again, we're coming up to the image where you can clearly see and make out what's actually going on. And, yeah, you have to make your own mind up to what's going on, but all I can show you is the evidence, folks. And when you see the evidence in front of you, and chop it up and put it back together, you'll see that that's the sun. At the end of the video, as I said, I've stuck a couple of enlargements of the video and everything so that you can actually see what's going on and work out what's going on with the sun and work it out for yourselves and make a true refining judgment as to what's going on with our sun. Now here's the enlargement of that orb again. Look at the pixelation. It's an artificial pixelation. It's actually been deliberately done. Otherwise it would be a standard pixelation. You would see the different colours expanding out, but the pixelation would be the exact same size throughout that object. That's artificial. I'm sorry, but it's definitely artificial. I see it all the time in UFO videos where they're faked videos. Now, the next one, we go back to the Soho camera for a second. Now, this is the Soho camera. You can notice that one, by this image, the sun would most probably be about 1,000 times the gas mass. But notice the gas mass around the sun is actually dark, okay, because there's not enough energy getting out to light the gas at the external sections of our sun. And I believe this happens just before coronal mass. Now, check this one out. It's a bit smaller. Now, and you can see the flares coming off the sun and everything like that. They're correct. They're in the right positions, the whole lot, stock and barrel. So basically it's what's actually truly happening with our sun. It does expand. It does expand out, and I believe it does this on nearly every time we have an earthquake. Now, there's the star, the sun there. They've tried to cover it over intensely with this one. But you can actually see that the size of the sun has expanded out quite a large amount too. This has happened a couple of days ago. But when we go back to the Core 1 images. This Core 1 image is basically going back to the 28th. I threw this in because of the object to the left. Now, with this image, you can see that the sun is enlarged, and they've pixelated out the centre and the sides, so that it does not look like a real object. With this one, they've only done it to the centre of the image. They haven't done it to the externals of the image. Now, here is a picture where the sun has expanded. You can notice the dark sections of our sun, which you'll see on the Soho camera in my next film, where basically it looks like it's black, but that's because it's expanded out when the camera's a lot closer to it, and therefore you can't see anything. You're just seeing the blackness of it. Now, basically, you can see here, again, it's a lot larger. This is truly the size of our sun at that time of the day in 2010. It flashed up, and that's what you saw. And notice the dark sections of the sun. The flares aren't as strong. Look at how the flares on this coronal image are so small. Now, these are because of the simple fact, and the simple fact only, that our sun has expanded. Okay, and our sun has been expanding for some time, and it's got something to do. Now, just before this was just before the Japan earthquake. Just before the Japan earthquake, it expanded up a couple of times, and we had a massive coronal mass dump. okay, which you would have seen in my last video. Now that coronal mass dump, I believe it does this prior to a coronal mass dump. Okay, this is the sun has expanded out, and it's just the gas that it's dumping off. Okay, that's a coronal mass image. After that it's done the dump, it's back to its normal size. So this happens regularly, folks. Okay, we just don't get told about it. And unless you're like me and get out there and actively find the images. So yeah. And here is that same one where the sun has expanded out. The gas mass has expanded out. That one most probably about 1,000 times that mass size, and it doesn't work by this one that's going by that. It works by the mass, folks. Okay, it's like 1,000 those little. So when you do see these enlargements happening in the pseudo images and Soho and stereo, they are actually real. So yeah, folks, look, make your own minds up. These images are real. Our sun is expanding. This is Anthony Avery signing off with the truth.